Hydrogen versus electric cars, who will win? While we all know and love the Tesla brand, have you ever taken the time to think about the other alternatives to gas-guzzling cars and trucks? You might not know it yet, but the automotive industry is beginning to make room for the next big thing in fuel alternatives. Hydrogen fuel cell technology. Hydrogen presents a unique opportunity to develop a plentiful fuel source, safe for the environment, and an efficient way of fueling our modern vehicles. However, the technology is just beginning to gain traction, and it has a lot of catching up to do if it wants to unseat the reigning champ of sustainable travel. Electric cars have quickly become a status symbol and a way of limiting your carbon footprint. The last 2 decades have had massive changes to the industry, and today we're going to tell you a bit more about the history of these two fuel alternatives as well as how the two stack up on the road. So sit back and relax and learn a bit more about the technology that will drive the future. History of electric cars. When you think of electric cars, you likely think of the rapid rise of Elon Musk's Tesla. However, you might be surprised to learn that the history of electric vehicles stretches back to at least the 1830s to a man named Robert Anderson. Robert Anderson lived in Scotland, and he designed and developed a motorized carriage that could move without the need for an actual horse. The problem with the horseless carriage was that batteries in the early 1800s were not yet designed to be able to be recharged. As a result, there was no real use for the first electric vehicle. However, that prototype built in 1837 was still one of the first attempts made to build an electric vehicle. The electric vehicle would see very little development until the 1900s when famous inventor Thomas Edison even owned a 1902 Studebaker Electric that he and a traveling companion put to the test on a long journey. However, Edison would apparently claim that he felt the gasoline engine had a brighter future than that of electric. This was totally fair, as Edison's Studebaker could only reach about 22 miles per hour and had the added difficulty of needing to be charged before electrical sources were widely available for the early electric cars. This is likely why car manufacturers such as Ford produced gasoline-powered engines in their vehicles, which led to the rise of fossil fuel usage worldwide. The first widely manufactured electric car wouldn't see the light of day until the 1960s. Even then, the Henny kilowatt left much to be desired. It wasn't until Tesla entered production in 2008 that electric cars really began to be seen as a viable means of transportation. Up until this point, electric vehicles were severely limited by underperforming batteries, a lack of charging infrastructure, and a lack of driving range. This meant the cars were better suited for short drives in the local area. But Tesla quickly changed all of that by building a national grid of charging stations and developing the technology to let electric cars drive faster and farther. Tesla created a product that got consumers excited about the possibility of a gasoline-less driving experience that might just change the world. Today, there are 2.5 million electric vehicles on the road, and their appeal is becoming a global phenomenon. With the launch of more consumer-friendly pricing, plenty of car manufacturers are sure to be raking in the cash as more consumers look for more environmentally friendly transportation options. History of hydrogen cars. Similarly, while gas and electric vehicles were developing, hydrogen-powered cars also had a brief chance of becoming the world's first automobile's official fuel source. In 1807, a Swiss inventor named Isaac de Rivaz built a prototype of an internal combustion engine that ran on hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen was stored in a special balloon and used to control the combustion mix that provided the fuel the car needed to function. However, the technology was way ahead of its time and unfortunately was scraped in favor of gasoline-powered vehicles. However, the idea of running a car on hydrogen has been extremely appealing to scientists for decades, as hydrogen is incredibly plentiful, can be highly fuel efficient, and is also one of the cleanest fuel sources available if we can just get the technology to where it needs to be. In the 1970s, developments in hydrogen-powered cars began again. The big push was furthered even further in the 1990s when climate change became a focus in the transportation industry, so that by the 2000s, hydrogen fuel cell technology was beginning to look like a reality. While Tesla has definitely cornered the early gasoline alternatives market, hydrogen-powered cars provide an exciting alternative. For one, the cars only produce water as a byproduct of the combustion engine. Additionally, the fuel cells can be produced in ethically sustainable ways that current electric car batteries cannot. Despite our best efforts, much of the rare earth metals needed to build an electric car battery often come from modern-day slavery in poor countries. Hydrogen cars are also becoming the focus of many car manufacturers, and they are actively taking a Tesla-esque approach by developing the framework and refueling stations needed to support a world where hydrogen is a viable alternative. Manufacturers such as Toyota, Hyundai, and Honda are leading the charge and pushing the technology as the future of fossil fuel alternatives. Hydrogen fuel stations are popping up all over the world. There are already 500 in Japan, about 30 in the UK, and 100 or so in the Southern California area. While this might not seem like great coverage, it's important to note that at the current time, there are few commercially available hydrogen-powered cars on the road. Many of the US-driven hydrogen cars are being leased at a loss to those in Southern California to prove their viability as the car of the future. There's still much to learn about the reality of these vehicles. Still, given time, we're sure the automotive world will adapt to whatever the future may bring. In comparison and conclusion, the main difference between hydrogen-powered fuel cell vehicles and your standard electric vehicle all comes down to how the electricity that powers the vehicle is stored on board. In a standard electric vehicle, electricity is created, transported to your home, used to charge a battery on board the car, and stored there until late use. While in a hydrogen-powered vehicle, the battery is more of a tank used to store hydrogen that is mixed with air to form a combustion engine that creates the electricity needed to power the vehicle. This might be a little confusing, but essentially electric cars run on outside electricity. Hydrogen uses onboard systems to make its own electricity. Another difference worth noting in regards to this difference is the cost of these vehicles. Your standard electric car runs about $40,000 in the US. In contrast, a hydrogen-powered car costs over $100,000 to produce and is currently leased at a loss to early adopters at a nearly $60,000 price tag. On top of the lack of hydrogen fueling stations, you'll also be paying a pretty penny to be an early adopter of this futuristic auto technology. However, one benefit of hydrogen over electric is how efficiently they can be refueled. Your typical electric car can take up to 12 hours to reach a full charge. Because of this, longer travel can be a headache of planning and waiting. On the other hand, hydrogen is refueled much in the same way gas is. However, they have the added bonus of an increased driving range of about 300 miles compared to an electric vehicle's 250-mile range average. While there are pros and cons to both styles of fuel alternative vehicles, there has yet to be a clear winner in the race to eliminate fossil fuels. Time will be the only way to tell which of these two alternatives will become the future of transportation technology. Until then, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment down below on what you think the future of automobiles will be. Does hydrogen stand a chance? Is Tesla the new Ford? Let us know below, and we'll see you next time.